Dr. Laquore Meadows, thank you for joining me today on the podcast. This is going to be a powerful conversation, one that all the women and moms need to be tuning into and taking notes in. So, thank you for joining me today.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I'm just delighted to be here.
I am so delighted to be able to shine a light on your work and what you're doing. And there's so much I want to dive into. But first, before we get started, I want to ask you the question for somebody who's started to listen to this episode and they're thinking financial wealth is not for them, it's
Mhm.
for somebody else and everybody else. What do you say to them?
Why not you? Why
Mhm.
not you? Right? Financial wealth for so many years, I think, has been kept as like this quasi secret, right?
Mm,
But truly, it's all about establishing one thing, and that is your yes, right? Making the decision to actually go for whatever financial goal that you have is the very important first step to take. And
mhm,
then asking yourself, what do I want to accomplish? Right?
mhm,
And establishing a strategy to get there.
mhm,
So there's nothing about the people who are extremely wealthy that's unique, but you can absolutely do it too.
mhm.
Hmm.
Yeah, I love that. It is so hard to wrap your head around it. And as I have become more financially successful myself, I understand there are some real hangups. There are some real things about the financial story you're telling yourself.
Yeah.
So I think it would be so helpful to tell your own story, what you
Mhm.
call poverty to PhD.
Yes.
And can you take us back to that moment when you realized that you wanted a different life? And and what was the fire for you to start pursuing investing?
Absolutely. So I grew up in a household where there was lots of love, hugs, and kisses and all the things, right? The road trips and all of that, right? But I did not have conversations about investing in anything around my dinner table at all, right? Just wasn't a topic. And it wasn't because my mother did not love me, but it was simply because she did not know, right? And so that's okay. That's okay. But I didn't start out with having, any type of indication of anything of how to grow my money. In fact, I was taught, never spend more than what you can afford. But I was never taught how do I actually afford more things. And
Mm,
so that's what I work on today is working to help other people afford more things, right? Regardless if that's helping a child go to college, which I have a child next year doing, if it's buying, that first home, second home, third home, that investment property, whether it's, taking that fabulous vacation that we desire, all of those things are achievable and actually doable, regardless of where you started. So I'll start there. So my journey in investing it really started with first and foremost my mother investing in me. And I moved from poverty to PhD because of one program, and that was called the Upward Bound program. At the time, it was a federally funded program, and hopefully it still exists to this day, but that's what exposed me to different. That's what had me going visiting different college campuses and so forth. And so I just fell in love with school. I fell in love with education. I fell in love with the possibilities of what could be. And so that's what led me to my PhD. So once I acquired that, I ended up working in higher education for over 20 years. My last position was at The Ohio State University, which was a fabulous position. I enjoyed what I did. However, when I really sat down and thought about what I wanted to accomplish in my life, I knew that my 9 to 5 simply would not cut it at
mm,
all. And so, fortunately, as I was on transitioning out of Ohio State, I had an opportunity to meet a very wealthy woman. And I was a part of a team that actually cultivated a gift of $5.3 million from her in order to build a building on the campus of Ohio State. And I was so inspired by that gift that I really wanted to know, like, okay, if you can give us this money and not blink, like, first and foremost, like, you must be really wealthy. But then more importantly, how did you make that money? And so she taught me and showed me throughout our different conversations, lunches, and all the things that she accumulated a lot of her wealth in the stock market. And so that's what just set me on fire. And I was like, okay, if you can do this, if you can donate $5.3 million and not blink one time, listen, I've got to figure this thing out. And so from there, I just started studying. I started watching all types of videos, going to the library, reading books, all the things, started book clubs, had meetings at my house, to talk about money, all the things, and just fell in love with it. Started to be really successful in the market and took off from there.
Mhm.
Hmm.
That is a wonderful story. And one of the things that really stood out to me was that so many women and moms, instead of taking that step to learn more and asking, how can I do this? They just get smaller
Hmm.
and they don't dare to want or
Hmm.
dream about what they could have or what they could be. So I
Hmm.
love that you're giving listeners permission to not make smaller dreams,
Hmm.
not make themselves smaller, but really get in touch with that and start asking that important question: how do I do this for myself?
Yes.
So, like I was talking about, there's so much fear around money and investing. What was your first experience in the stock market like? And what were some of the mindset shifts that you had to make that allowed you to start building wealth?
Absolutely. So my first experience was a disaster. Okay. Yeah, I'll start there. So I grew up in a community in Ohio where literally across the street from where I lived was a GE aviation plant, okay, General Electric aviation plant. And so when I first started, after I had this wonderful encounter with the woman who donated the money, I was like, okay, let me just start investing in something, right? And so I decided that I wanted to invest in GE because it was something I knew, right? Something I was familiar with, something that family had worked there for years, right? And so, yeah, that was not a good idea. So I ended up losing money on that initial investment on my own. And then I was like, okay, I need to like really figure this thing out. And so from there, that's when I started to dig a little bit more, started understanding fundamental analysis, how to read all the balance sheets, all the things, right? The financial statements of companies. Um, so that's how things started for me. And then your other question, I want to make sure I remember because I went I went back to GE.
Oh, yeah. And what were some of the limiting beliefs that you had to
Um,
shift in order to begin to grow your wealth?
Absolutely. I think the biggest limiting belief that I had was, is this for me? Right? I would see people talk about their successes. I would hear, I remember one day very vividly, I was on an elevator with a gentleman and I thought I was doing something by trading stocks. And he was like, well, why are you not trading options? And I'm like, well, I heard of it, but I don't know what that is. Right? And so at that point, I felt very small, but also felt like, okay, if he knows this, he's no better than I am. So let me try to figure this out too, right? So, and as a woman of color as well, I just didn't see a lot of people who shared my reflection in this space, right? So it was very isolating. But I knew if I could figure it out, it didn't matter what my color was, where I came from, anything like that. So that's one thing I had to overcome. I think also a big limiting belief that I had was when things went wrong in the market, because sometimes they do, right? Was, do I know enough to get this thing right? right? And
Mhm.
so what I had to recognize is that this happens to everybody, right? It's just a component of being active in the market. The market does three things. It goes up, it goes down, and it moves sideways, right? And so it's not going to always go in one direction. So I had to come to that understanding that, okay, you know, this is just a part of the journey. So, mhm,
I like that. And it is so hard when you're in a situation where you don't see anybody like you
mhm,
succeeding to be brave enough to be persistent and keep that self belief. And so I think that that's still largely the case. Unfortunately, I think things are changing. But
mhm,
that's why I think it's so important to have this conversation.
yeah,
But two, so many people tie what is happening in the market or their financial stability or security with whatever administration is in the White House, right?
yes, yes,
Another one of those things that I just think that we need to empower ourselves. So no matter what is happening with those that you can't control,
mhm,
and those things that can't control, we should be able to empower ourselves to have a stable life and do live our life on our own terms.
mhm,
So I know that that's something that you really love to preach to.
mhm, yes, yes.
So, can you break that myth down for us and explain how you help others take back that same control that I'm talking about that we need to have?
Yeah, 100%, 100%. So I am a firm believer that while presidents may change, while policies may change, principles of building wealth remain the same. Okay. One thing we know about the Trump presidency 1.0 is that one of the things that he himself was very proud of was the bullishness, if you will, of the stock market, right? However, with Trump 2.0, we see that, especially early on, we saw that tariffs took priority, right? Which in the short term wreaked havoc on the market,
Mhm.
right? So, of course, for someone just getting started, that could look very, very scary, all right? But when we look at the market over time, we look at the S&P over time. S&P 500 is the broad market index. The
Mhm.
market, of course, is going to do, as I was mentioning earlier, it's going to go up, it's going to go down, it's going to move sideways. But over time, the market goes up, right? So understanding that and leveraging the broader market, just as one particular benchmark, is really helpful to consider, okay? Also, as it relates to the principles of wealth building, it's consistency, right? So, one of the things that I have really started to think a lot about as it relates to what I'm doing in business as well as what I'm doing investing is this whole notion of clarity breeds confidence, right? So, it's important for us to first spend time understanding a thing so that we can get clear. Once we're clear, that helps to build our confidence, right? And then confidence helps to breed consistency. So if we're
Mhm.
confident about something, we will be more apt to do it even more.
Mhm.
Okay. And then consistency then breeds what? Results.
Mhm.
Right? So it's about really sitting down, getting clear, focusing, and then letting things move forward from there.
Mhm.
But I just believe that regardless of who's out there, who's in the White House at the moment, the principles of wealth building remain the same.
Mhm.
Hmm.
I love that framework, and I think it applies to so many things. You can use
Yeah.
it to how you do one thing is how you do all things, in my opinion. I see it over and
Hmm.
over.
Yes.
And if you learn a framework like that to um, build wealth, you can also use it to, be more successful in your business, be more successful
Mhm.
in your family life and your relationships. And so I think that's a really powerful reminder.
Yeah.
And at the heart of that clarity is educating yourself and
Yes.
and finding somebody who can help you um, really figure it out and empower yourself with some knowledge
Mhm.
to start putting the other parts of the framework in action. So let's talk about Wealth HOUZ and tell us about the inspiration behind it, especially how Divine Nine culture played a role and
Yeah.
why this isn't just another financial framework and it's more like a movement, right?
It is. It is. Now, I am in the process of realigning my life, right? And one of the things that I'm so excited about is a part of this realignment is continuing the narrative and the work of the Wealth House. And so, what it is a 12 component program that helps people navigate through the mindset
Mm,
that's needed to build wealth because that's where it truly starts, right? Understanding, what is our money story? What types of things did we learn as young people? And how are those learnings now impacting what we're doing today, right? What type of attachment style do we have with money? And if it's not an attachment style that's serving us, well, what are some key steps that we can take to make that better, right? Also thinking about, okay, so now that we kind of understand ourselves and where we've been a little bit better, what is that North Star goal? So one of my favorite books that I'm reading right now is called The Science of Scaling. It's by Benjamin Hardy. Fabulous book. Fabulous book. So he talks about this notion of solving for the goal. Okay. So instead of saying, okay, I want to start a new business next year, but on the way, we're saying, okay, I gotta get this degree, I gotta get this, I gotta get this certification, all the things. Okay, that is a way to detract ourselves, right, away from the goal. But what do we do to specifically take the straight pathway towards accomplishing opening that business, right?
mhm,
So the Wealth House helps us to dig into what do we do to take the straight and narrow pathway to get us to the wealth that we desire to have,
mhm,
right? And so, also what we do in there is we talk about how to read. Last week, for example, I talked about how to read financial statements, the balance sheet, the cash flow sheets, um, and all the things, right? Sorry, my mind is like
mhm,
escaping me. And then also I taught about index funds, REITs, all the things that can help us to accomplish that North Star goal of wealth that we have as well. So that's the Wealth House.
mhm,
Now, that was inspired by my work with stocks and Sorors. So I'm a member of a Divine Nine sorority, and it was started during the time where one of the Divine was actually coming up on their 60th, which was Sigma Gamma Rho. I was so inspired by the fact that collectively we were going into having 400 years of service because four sororities, both here domestically as well as abroad, that I thought it was important for us to commemorate that moment. But I didn't have a leadership role at the time. I didn't know a president. I couldn't like get that up to our leadership. So I decided to do it in my own way. And so Stocks and Sorors was born to not only commemorate those 400 years, but to truly help sorority women understand how do we build our finances in a way that will benefit our families for the next 400 more.
mhm.
So that was the purpose of Stocks and Sorors, and it is a beautiful, beautiful community of women.
Wow. I love this idea of you having this way for people to like deconstruct their story around money because we all have a story around money, but also to start telling yourself a new story.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's just so powerful. And I know so many women are starting to do that. So I love that. So let's talk about people renting their financial future instead of owning it. And that is a really powerful statement. So what does it mean to own your financial future? And what does that look like in practice, especially for busy mompreneurs?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so owning your financial future is really taking charge of it, right? So one of the things that I firmly believe is that money is energy, right? And if our financial house, so think of it like this, right? So when we have our homes, right? Of course, as busy, I'm a mom and busy mom entrepreneur as well. But as a busy mom, sometimes our house is not as tidy as what we might want it to have, right? But if we invite guests over and they don't come to a tidy house, they're probably not want to stay, right? So I think about money in the same way, all right? If our financial house is not in order, when we have new money that comes into the mix, what is the likelihood of it hanging around and staying? Right? What is the likelihood of it knowing what its assignment is to grow for us? Right? So I firmly believe that taking ownership of your future is putting your money on assignment, right? Giving it a job. For example, every single position that I own in my stock portfolio has a specific job. A large part of it is to pay for my daughter's college tuition next year, right? But then I have other things that are assigned to another area of life that I have to care for, right? So taking charge, taking ownership of what you do, and making sure that your money has something to do once it comes to you, I think is really important and helpful.
Hmm. Yeah. And so is there is there a process, and it sounds like maybe your wealth house would be one of them. Is there something that listeners can begin to do today to maybe start tidying up their financial house?
Hmm. Look at it. Look at it. That's the first step, right? So, different people have different types of attachment styles to money, right?
Hmm.
For a very long time, I'm going to be honest, my attachment style was avoidant.
Mm.
So, I knew I had money coming in. I knew that, then sometimes not as much, all the things. So, I would just stay away, right? Not opening envelopes, not doing, all the things, right? But some people are also very much looking at everything every single day, right? But I think it's important to first take a look at what you have,
Mhm.
and then also not just look at what you have, but look at the opportunities that are around you to grow it,
Mhm.
right? To grow it. It doesn't have to be the stock market. The stock market is a great place, right? Especially
Mhm.
because we're still very much in a solid bull market. But what are some opportunities that you have around you, even if it's opening a small business, even if it means to, invest in real estate in some kind of way, right? There are so many things you can do to multiply what you have.
Mhm. Yeah, and
Hmm.
that is free. That's totally free. You don't have to
Hmm.
pay anybody
Hmm.
to just sit down
Hmm.
and look at your finances and
Yeah.
think and research other ways that you can grow your money. I love that. And sometimes the most obvious and simple things just escape us because we have this way of overcomplicating things. But
Hmm.
sometimes the
Yes.
simplest
Yes.
steps that we can take first and on our own and empower ourselves in that way are just the best place to start.
Yeah,
So I,
100%, 100%. And then also there are a lot of different apps out there as well that can help you to like look at a full dashboard of what you have going on financially. One of my favorite, I'm not affiliated with them in any way, but I use Monarch.
Mhm.
Monarch has been really helpful for me as well to be able to see what my net worth is, right? And establish a plan to grow it as well.
I love that
Mhm.
recommendation to,
Yeah.
go look for something like that. I mean, we live in such a digital world. Don't be afraid of trying out a tool that could help you see your money differently. Um, I think that's really
Absolutely.
great. Yeah. I also love that part of your mission is, giving and building community. Share with us about Invest to Give. And you did speak
Mhm.
a little bit about stocks and Sorors and how those platforms are
Mhm.
shifting the wealth narrative, especially for women of color.
Yeah, absolutely. So Investigative was born shortly after my engagement with the woman that I mentioned earlier, the very wealthy individual who gave us the money, who actually gave me so much more valuable than the money that she gave to the institution. She gave me the keys to financial wellness, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but Investigate was born because I am on a mission to invest, to give back to the
Mm-hmm.
people and causes that I care most about. I firmly believe that as we invest, it is our duty to reciprocate, right? And kind of return the money to the cycle, right? And keep things going. So that's why the business is named that. And I'm so grateful that I have been able to serve a lot of students over the years to help them do the same. And I'll give one example. This isn't actually a woman, this is actually a man in my community. His name is Kent. He is a student that I was teaching pre-pandemic. I was teaching him as well as some other gentlemen how to trade stocks and options. And after the pandemic, he came back to me. He says, Dr. Laquore, I really want to learn this seriously. Like I understood things in class, but I really want to dig into this. So I taught him afterward through my inner circle how to trade options. And more recently, Kent reached out to me and he says, Dr. Laquore, I have something I want to show you. He was like, I need to show you what you're doing. And I said, what I'm doing? He was like, yeah, I need to show you what you're doing. Can you hop on Zoom? And I was like, I'm the what? Like, what am I doing? So we proceeded and we hopped onto Zoom and he shows me all of these pictures of boreholes being created or built in Ghana because in villages of people who do not have clean water. And he was like, I'm taking what you taught me, I'm trading options, and now I'm building boreholes in Ghana so that villages of people have access to fresh water. I'm like, oh my God. And so so that just had me like literally on the floor and crying and all the things because that truly is the realization of my vision coming to life.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm actually headed to Ghana in January in order to actually see that in action. So I'm so excited about that.
That is so exciting. It's got to be so rewarding
Yeah.
to go from somebody who didn't have a lot of financial empowerment or knowledge, it sounded like, to now inspiring others,
Yeah.
and really seeing that impact. That's
Hmm.
got to be really incredible.
Yes, it's
You,
been amazing.
yeah, hey, and you're even ranked in the top 16% of traders on TradeStation.
Trade station, yes.
What do you think sets your strategy apart? And what do you think that, what are you doing differently than what is typically taught?
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. So two things. One is mindset.
Mhm.
So trading is 20% skill, 80% mindset. So, in order to be successful consistently on the stock market, you can
Mhm.
absolutely be a one trade wonder and you can make a lot of money quickly, right? But consistency is key. In
Mhm.
order to be consistently profitable on the market, we have to be able to control this, right? Which is our minds.
Mhm.
And so, with that said, throughout the years of trading, I've been able to take the emotion out of it and focus on the strategy,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Um, so I'm very disciplined with my trading,
Mhm.
and I have specific rules that I align myself with and my trading strategy with, and that's how I win,
Mhm.
right? That's how I win. So that's one thing. It's mindset, sticking to the rules, the strategy. The
Mhm.
second thing is the strategy that I use.
Mhm.
Okay, so one of the things about trading, it's about probabilities, especially when you're trading options, right? You want to set up a trade that puts the probability of your success in your favor. You want to stack the odds in your favor, okay? So, in order to do that, I actually, instead of being a buyer, for those who understand options, you'll understand what I'm talking about, but there's two things you can do with options. You can buy and you can sell.
Mhm.
So I buy sometimes, but I'm primarily a seller.
Mhm.
Okay. And so as a seller, you can set up your trade so that the probability of your success is like 92%.
Mhm.
So that's what has helped me to get to the top is because I'm trading in a way that is very high probability with the strategies that I use.
Mhm. And so, one of the things I'm thinking about too is oftentimes when we start something new or we learn new things, if we don't see an immediate result, we abandon it.
Mm-hmm.
So, talk about what a long game it is to start seeing some success when you
Mm-hmm.
learn how to invest and
Mm-hmm.
how long it took you to start seeing results.
Absolutely. So I had students ask me this just last night. So it is a long game. Okay. Trading and investing is not something that's going to make you a millionaire overnight, right? It's helpful to have what I call a financial fortress built around you. All right. And that will help you to see results a little bit faster. So let me talk about what the financial fortress is. It is long term. One pillar of that formula is having a long-term approach. So we're buying securities today, and I'm not saying go do this, but I'm educating. Index funds is one way to definitely consider. Okay. So index funds, buy them, broad market index funds, let it sit and simmer over the long time term. All right. So that's a long-term strategy. Holding 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the line, but also, as I was mentioning earlier, giving that position an assignment. What is it used for? All right. And that keeps us away from closing it out early, right? If we are like, okay, I need an extra $1,000 here, $1,000 there, right? We
Mhm.
want to keep that thing working so that it can accomplish what it set out to accomplish. The second pillar is the income pillar, and that's where I specialize in. That's trading, right? So that is taking positions today and closing it out today. It could be closing out this week, this month, a couple of months from now, but it's a more short-term approach.
Mhm.
So while you're doing that, then that background money can be working for you in the background. All right. And then the third pillar is the opportunity pillar. So that is looking for other types of ways to make money outside of the stock market. All
Mhm.
right. Because sometimes the market's going to pull back. We saw it
Mhm.
earlier this year. Sometimes life is going to get super busy. You might not have time to trade, right? But you still have something else over here making you money while you sleep, while life is happening and the market's doing what it's going to do. Okay, so that will be one thing that I would recommend is putting that financial fortress around yourself. And what
Mhm.
was the second part of your question?
It was just basically the long term commitment that you need to have to stick with it. But
Yeah.
another question that I was thinking about as you were talking was I'm imagining listeners are going, how much time do I need, like on a daily or a weekly basis, to invest
Mm-hmm.
in developing my portfolio or my strategies and
Mm-hmm.
that kind of thing?
Yeah, I say if you can at least commit an hour a week to focused time to
Mhm.
learning, right? An hour a week of focused time to reviewing companies' financials, that is a great place to start, okay? Even if you decide you want to start trading, learning how to read a stock chart, that's
Mhm.
fairly simple as well. So just an hour a week will pay dividends later down the line.
And I bet if anybody listening right now looked at the amount of time that they spent on their phone today, it is
Yes.
way more than 1 hour.
Yes,
So it
absolutely.
is
Absolutely.
definitely possible to cut back on some time doing things that don't give you those dividends. Uh,
Yes, 100%.
I love that.
100%. Yes.
You've already alluded to you're creating a legacy, maybe that you didn't even intend to do, but it's just born from what you learned and what you're helping other people learn. But I love to have listeners start to think about their own legacy that they want to leave, not just financial legacy, but a legacy of work and impact. So, talk
Mhm.
about what you see your legacy for the future and how other women can start using their own legacy concept to forward their lives.
Mm, Such a good question. So oftentimes I think about my dash, right? So from the year I was born to when the year that the good Lord takes me home, what do I want that to stand for? What do I want people to remember me for? And I aspire for my legacy to really center around freedom.
Yeah.
Freedom. So not just financial freedom, but freedom from all of the mental barriers that hold us back to accomplishing our goals. One of the things that is most attractive to me of anyone is for someone to truly live out their gifting,
Mm.
right? Um, so many of us are in jobs that we just absolutely hate. So many of us are in jobs that we're like, oh my gosh, every day I feel anxious. There's anxiety, there's depression, there's all these things going on. And oftentimes, the barrier between them being at that position and them actually taking that step is money, but
Hmm.
it's also fear.
Hmm.
And so I would love to be remembered as someone who helps people to break through both of those barriers,
Hmm.
mentally as well as financially.
Yeah. Honestly, that's what this podcast is all about, embracing those women who realize they want to make that change. And
Mhm.
so I definitely think that this conversation will add to that. So for that woman who's listening right now who wants to build wealth but feels behind,
Mhm.
what's one bold but simple step that they can take this week to start moving forward to more of that financial ownership and the freedom that you just talked about?
Mhm. One step and one step only. Ask the questions,
Mm,
right? Ask the questions. So many of us are afraid and are ashamed to ask because we feel like we should already know,
mm,
right? But it's okay if we don't.
right.
There are so many people out here that can answer the questions that we have that
Mhm.
can truly break us free from whatever it is that we've been staying away from. Right? For a very long time, I sat in that same space where I was like, okay, I should understand how to do a P&L stuff. I should understand like how to do, right? And the list goes on. But it is not until I asked was I able to break free and move forward from that.
Mhm.
So my one word of advice would be to please to get started on your next steps, to get started with your wealth journey, or to continue your wealth journey, is to ask the questions.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like I said, we just have this way of overcomplicating things, and we all have
Mm-hmm.
to start from somewhere, and it just
Mm-hmm.
comes with that curiosity
Mm-hmm.
that what if it could be better?
What if it
And
could be? Yeah, absolutely.
and what if it happened to you and why not you?
Mm-hmm.
So I love all the permission that you've given us in this conversation and all of the possibility that you've presented, because sometimes that's all we need to see is somebody that looks like us or sounds like us and is opening the door to possibility. So I think you're doing that for listeners today. And so thank you so much for spending time with us and sharing part of your wisdom and story and insight. So if listeners are going, I want to connect with Dr. Meadows. She's my person. I think
Yeah.
that I need to learn what she knows or even a portion of what she knows. So,
Mhm.
where can they connect with you and be in your orbit and start to take those steps?
Absolutely. So I would love to for everyone to join my new school community. It's called the Investigative Insiders Club. So that would be a great way to just get some foundational information about the stock market in general. I post in there literally every single day. I have videos in there, I have trainings, all the things. So, and it's absolutely free. So that's a great place to start.
Uh-huh.
Also, you can check me out on Instagram,
Mhm.
TikTok, YouTube, all the things at Invest the number two give as well.
I love that. And I'll leave links to all of that in the show notes. Thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you for just being an example of what's possible and shining your light.
Absolutely. The pleasure was truly all mine. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much.